So here we are back at our little welcome page here. Okay, so we're looking at these things. Well, we want to continue to work. So what it is I'm going to use my text mark page to be the parent. Okay, it's going to contain all the other pages underneath of it that have to do with that. Okay, so somebody else pop it in here. Okay, so so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to text mark so that I'm going to engage with that so it's colored in. Now from that, I can then right click and I can say, let's create another new page. Now this is going to be a child to text mark because whenever you use the create function, it's going to add underneath or the next layer down under whatever you have in context. So I hit create and it's a page and it's an interior page with a banner. Now you notice the page name is identical at the top as when we started. Well, we're going to create a different one here. So I'm going to change this to gallery mark because I'm going to show you how to use a gallery, and that's for being able to bring in pictures. So I'm going to call it gallery mark, and of course the template is all the same. So I'm going to put a heading in here, and it's going to say this is Mark's gallery page. Okay, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to my summary page, and I'll put that in for the heading for this summary, and I could say here is more text to be used for the summary display for the gallery page. Go. Okay, and a picture. Now, when I head over here, I've got pictures already. You can bring in more than one picture at a time. Now, I could have gone to the media folder manually, and I could have found my folder or whatever designated area I want, and I could have said, let's bring in, 54 pictures into here. So I can do it through there, or I can do it on the fly. What I can do here is inside my Mark training folder, if when I go to upload, when I reach into here, I could say, let's bring in a couple more pictures. So let's bring in this golden lab. And if I hold my control key down, I can also say, let's bring in the border collie. So when I hit open, it can bring in multiple pictures at the same time. So I'm going to upload 2 more pictures into here for us to be able to use. But on this particular page is the one that's going to be on the summary. So we'll move it and we'll make it the golden lab. And select. There we go. So now I've created my summary page. I've got my heading that is replicating what I have as the name of my page. I've given a little text in here as a summary, and I put a picture. Well, now I can go back to the content and I can hit save. Okay, so now that I've hit save, it'll come up with that save and preview. And of course, when I save and preview, it's simply going to have back to the original banner picture because I haven't edited it for this page. And there's my Mark's Gallery page as the heading level 1. Well, nothing is different from how I create the text page. The only difference here is going to be that when I go to add the main content, I'm not going to pick the text box. I'm going to pick the gallery. The gallery is sitting right here. And when I go in, it has an intro and an outro. So I can use these now because the gallery is only capable of putting pictures or videos up there. So if I want to provide context for my pictures or videos, that's what I'm using the intros and the outros for, is to frame up the images that I'm going to put up there. So what I'm going to turn the intro on, align to the left, and the heading I'm going to use for this is going to be that this is the Gallery of Wonders. Okay, a lot of pressure on this to be something really special. So this, of course, would be a heading level 2 because the heading level 1 is already there with Mark's gallery page. And in here, I can add a secondary heading, and I'm going to say, see the glory of the universe. Once again, setting huge expectations on what I'm going to put out there. So I'll make a medium size. Now, in the text here, I'm actually going to put in here that this is an introduction to the settings for everything. So as part of what we're going to do, we're going to look at these settings that can be applied to things, okay? Now, there's a button here if I wanted you to be able to go and get more information from somewhere else. But I'm going to save the buttons until we work with pods, and I'll explain all about buttons and links at that point in time. What I want to do is just set up a little intro here, okay? Now, what I'm going to do in here is that's just my intro. So when I hit create now, I haven't put the main content for inside the gallery in here, but this is what it looks like. I've used my intro to create this piece here. Okay. Now that I have that, now I can go into my gallery, and for the main area here, when I hit let's add content, When we had the text box, it already had the text box there because the only thing you can do with the text box is put text in the box. Well, here we have some choice within a gallery. We have a choice. We could add a singular picture. We could add multiple pictures, a singular video, or the contents of an entire folder. Well, we're going to start easy. Let's start with a single image. So when I put that in, it says, okay, what picture do you want? Well, we'll start off with our dogs. And inside, I'm going to go pick our corgi to start with. So in here, it says image caption. I can actually write a caption to go with the image that I've chosen for this. So in here, I could say that this is ear flipping fun. All right, that's what our dog's doing. Now it does say, do I want to disable the light window? What's a light window? A light window is a different way that we can see the image of the dog. Okay. Now when I'm going to leave it on, so by default it's going to be set to on, but it allows me to put in a title or a footer, so I can actually put little captions around it. Now these captions are not semantic captions and titles and footers. This is just regular text that we put there. So where I have title, I'm going to write the word title. And where I have footer, I'm going to put footer. And we can see where they show up. So when I put, all I did really is put the picture of this dog in, made it ear flipping fun as a caption, and then I set a title and footer for the light window, and I hit create. Now that's done. Well, I can hit submit, and now I can hit save and preview. And this is what it looks like. Still have my intro, and I've got my picture of the puppy with the ear flipping fun. Now you notice Govstack likes to have some fun. So when you hover over it, it's going to zoom in a little bit and do things. But a light window, if you notice that it's a regular pointer, when I go onto the picture, it's a pointy. So when I click on the picture, it opens in the foreground as a separate picture, and we have a title and a footer. Now the title shows up in black. I'm just going to have this picture of that. There we go, because that should be showing up in white. Okay. So you can actually read the title. So you can actually write a title and a footer with any image, and it's sitting in its own box. None of these impact accessibility whatsoever, because the screen reader doesn't read these. Okay, this light window is something outside of that. When I'm done, I can click the white X in the upper right corner, and I go back to the regular page. That's all there is to adding a picture onto here. Does that make sense to everyone? But wait, there's a ton more. We haven't touched the settings whatsoever. Okay, so what I can do is I can go into here, and if I go into the gallery and into here, my single image, I can copy it, or I can get rid of it, or I can work with the settings. Well, what do the settings look like when we work on the individual content within a gallery? Well, all it is in here is a name. Okay, and what I can do is I can type, this is corgi. Okay, now the rest of this, the custom classes don't worry about. Hide from the website. Am I hiding this picture? No, I want people to see it. So when I hit submit and submit from here, if I go back into my gallery, it has renamed this now as Corgi, because I have the ability to add more pictures in here. But because I gave it the name Corgi, if I have 64 pictures in here, I'll know which one is which. So in here, I can say, well, let's add content in another single image. This time, let's go pick the Golden Lab. Okay, actually, before I do this, oh, I already showed you, never mind, stay. In here, image caption will have, this is fun in the sun. Okay, there we go. I'm not going to worry about the light window because you already saw how that works, and I can hit create. And of course, it's called single image again, so I would go in and name it, this is a Golden Lab. And I can add a third in here. I can pick another single image, and in here I can pick the border collie this time. Okay. And select, and image caption will be that this is the, we'll say, coming through the wheat, like that. Okay, there we go. So now, oh, I'm going to go back into here, and I'll change this to be border collie. Go. And now when I hit submit but come back in, it will have named all three of them independently, so I can move them, or I can know which one is which. Well, what do they look like now? Well, when I save and preview, I now have my gallery page, I have my intro, and I've got my one here. This is ear flipping fun, and then I've got the fun in the sun, and I've got the coming through the wheat. So I can just stack a bunch of pictures in here. But again, but wait, there's more, tons more. Okay, but as far as adding a picture with a gallery, just getting the picture out there, does that make sense to everybody? Everybody good with that? All right, now, when I go over here, if I look at the gallery itself, the entirety of the gallery, you can see it has 3 items on the inside. But if I go to the settings wheel here, it's different. In here, it's saying under the design and layout that we are seeing these as 1 per row, because that's what I'm getting, just 1 every row. In here, it says I can change the number per row. So what if I want all 3 of them in the same row? Well, I could click 3 per row and hit submit and save and preview. And now all 3 of my pictures are down here. And like I said, when you work with these, they auto size everything for you. You don't have to do anything. There's your 3 pictures stacked on the same row, all compressed down to the appropriate size for this. I could even change this up and say, well, in here, maybe I want to do 2 per row. Well, what happens there? Well, it puts the first 2 up here a little bit bigger and the third one below. Okay, so we've got any way we want to lay out. We can do this up to 8 per row. Okay, the pictures get fairly small by then, but we can change this around. Now, the next thing it has is remove item spacing. Okay, when we take a look over here, there's this space in between the pictures that exists, that little border zones. Well, I can actually turn those off. And when I hit submit and save and preview, now they're pushed together. So depending upon how much room you have, how you want to display this, you could play with little things like that. This isn't something you could do with anything within iCreate, right? When you put a picture in there, that's what you get. Okay, so heading back into our settings. In here, it says image style. Now, when we took a look at the actual picture and went to do the edits, right, it showed you all the aspect ratios. Well, here's where I can choose what I want. So what I can say is let's do 2 to 1. So it'll be 2 increments wide to 1 increment tall. So if I pick that one and hit submit and save and preview, it now does 2 to 1. Now I got to turn the item spacing back on in between them so we can get a good look here. Yep. And there we go. Now, that's all there is. But then you're like, but the top of the border collies or the top of the golden lap's head's cut off. Here's the really cool thing. I showed you before when we brought the pictures in that we can move the focal point. Well, here's another way that we can work with pictures. If I go back into here, into my gallery, and I go to that golden lab, if I go into the golden lab and I use the edit pencil, I know I'm using 2 to 1 aspect ratio, which is this one right here, where the dog's head is cut off. Now, yeah, I could move the focal point around, but it might throw something else off. Here is what the really cool thing is. I can go to my 2 to 1 and click on it, and now I'm working exclusively with the 2 to 1 aspect ratio. And what I can do is I can zoom in or out with it, but I can position where I want the dog's face. And when I'm done and I have a position where I want, I can hit done. And now I've edited how the 2 to 1 aspect ratio works, but only the 2 to 1 aspect ratio. The rest of them are still at the default. So as I move through here and use them, I can take any one of these individual ones and I can edit them individually without having to define the number of pixels and this and that and the other thing. Just drag it around, zoom in, zoom out, whatever you want to do, you set it up. And I can do it with all my pictures. So that's for the golden lab. So when I hit save, I can now go back, submit and go back into my original corgi here. And let's see what we can do with the corgi. Well, there's a lot of open space here. So what if I went to the 2 to 1 here and said, well, let's zoom in a little bit, and then let's move the dog's head a little bit more central. There we go. Done. Now I've changed how the 2 to 1 for this one, and I save and close and submit. And I can go to the border collie. Now, even though it's centered, it's kind of in the distance. Maybe I want to bring the dog up a little bit. Not a problem. Go to the 2 to the 1, zoom in a little bit, position the dog's face just on the face. Done. And now I've picked the special one for that. Well, now I've changed how each of mine work. So what I can do now when I hit save and preview is now they're all kind of focused on the dog's face. And even if I change the size, okay, it still knows I want the 2 to 1 aspect ratio. So when I work with this and I say, well, leave it at 2 to 1, but let's change the number per row. Let's go to 3 per row and submit, save and preview. It's still focused on the dog's faces the way that I had for that particular aspect ratio. It's compressed them down to the available space based upon the number per row, but it's focused the same way. And even if I go back in to make it 1 per row, So they're huge. You're still focused on the dog's faces. Does using the independent aspect ratios of being able to impact each one independently make sense to everyone? Good. Awesome. Now, there's a ton more things we can look at here. So if I go in, let's leave it at 2 per row. What about box padding? Well, box padding shaves areas off. I don't ever use box padding. I don't really care for it, but I'll show you what it does. So when I go in and I move it back to 2 per row, see these black pieces, then it shaves them off. But because it shaved it off, they're no longer 2-to-1 aspect ratio, which means they're not zoomed in where I had it. So I don't like using the box pad very often. But what it does is it pulls the captions outside, and that kind of looks kind of weird too. So not a huge fan, but I want you to see the options here. Depends upon the nature of your situation, the way your picture is. Maybe it works for you guys. Okay, so that's what that does. Turn that off. Then we have enable random order. By default, it's going to show the corgi first, the golden lab second, and the border collie last. So if I've got them stacked 1 per row, then that's the order they'll show in. If I got them going across, that's the order they'll show in. So that's all. But I can enable a random order, and what that means is that every time somebody comes to the page, the system randomly decides what order to put those pictures in. So just for a little bit of change, right? And then finally, enable carousel. Okay, so the thing is, I'm going to move these back to 1 per row. Okay, and we're going to make a carousel. Now, carousel just simply means it's a slider. It's going to change, it's going to have the same space and just change pictures within that space. When I turn it on, it says, okay, well, do you want to show arrows? That allows me to move it through them at my own speed. Well, sure. And what about showing dots? The dots allow me to look at ones out of order. So I don't have to wait for them to come in the proper order. I can look at them out of order. And then it says, when we rotate, how fast do you want them to rotate? Now I can have it so that there is no rotation, meaning that they move the pictures on their own using the arrows, or I can extend it up to 10 seconds. Now, by default, the correct answer is 3. And the reason for that is it takes the human brain 2.72 seconds to fully register whatever it sees in a picture. So if I put up a picture of a duck, it only takes you 2.72 seconds to look at it and go, it's a duck. Right? But of course, that rotation speed is based upon the content. Identifying a duck is only requiring 2.72 seconds. But if I had an art display and I had a bunch of Salvador Dali paintings up, and there's all kinds of melting clocks and headless giraffes and all kinds of chaos going on, probably needed a little bit more time to see the full picture of what's going on. So you might want to extend that. But 3 tends to be the optimum number. If you go too much shorter than 3, it's moving just a little bit too fast. And by the time you get 2 or 3 pictures in, so I missed that. Oh, I missed that because you're falling behind. Of course, if you extend it to 4, now you're bored. And so for that extra second, you're like, please just change. It's the endless wait. So 3 is a good number for regular pictures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to submit this and we will take a look at it. So what it does is I get 1, and there's the arrows and the dots, and after 3 seconds, it will rotate onto the next picture, and off we go. It's using the same aspect ratio that I had defined when I worked with the settings that were in here, and we're good. I can move at my own speed here by clicking on these arrows, or I can choose to go out of order by clicking on the dots that are here. Okay. Now I do have a pause button. You may end up with somebody who's looking at your piece here, but they have a cognitive challenge that where they don't process it as fast. What they can do is they can click on the pause button. It will stay at this picture until they choose to do otherwise. They can either move through this on their own, or they can, when they're done looking at it, they can click on the play button. It'll engage a 3-second timer again, and then it will rotate. Okay. So that's how you build a slider. But there's a lot more we can do with the slider. This is just 1 per row. I could go and say, well, within this particular piece here, let's do 2 per row. Well, how does that change things? Well, when I head in, I'm going to get back to the 2 per row, and it's going to show me like this. And what it'll do is every 3 seconds, it's going to rotate, shuffle the right-hand picture to the left, and they'll bring in a new one from the other side. And it will just continue to rotate through. Does that make sense to everyone? And of course, if I have 3 per row, it's not actually going to rotate because, well, I'm already showing all 3. So anyways, we can set this up to be rotating in any way we want. So that's what the carousel is. Any questions about the carousel? Okay, now that's under design and layout. I still have 3 other things to look at here. So the next segment that we have is the component. And what is this? The content colors. Now the default is that, actually, if I go close this off, discard, what do we got here? 2 per row, that's fine. Submit, save, and preview. All right, so when we look at these, this is how we've got it. You have to turn the carousel off. There we go. Okay, so here it is, not moving, got 3 pictures. What I can do is it's highlighted or just laying on top of this white area out here. What I can do is I can go into my settings here under the component, and at the top I can give it a color. So what I can do here is I can go in and I can make a blue background with white letters. So when I click on this, it's going to apply this behind the entire gallery. So the intro, the outro, and the pictures. So when I turn that on and I hit submit and we take a look at it, it puts a blue box and white writing to give a little bit of contrast. Now, the colors that are available for you to pick from that are here in the gallery by default are ones that we set up in the design tab to go with Aurelia Recreation. Because you have access to the design tab, you'll be able to go in and create your own designs with different colors and things should you choose to. Now, once again, when we do the design tab, I'll go through all the cautions that we have about how we use that. Because obviously we have full control over colors, but we also want to make sure that the colors that we're using don't impede anyone that might have color blindness or color sensitivity. So we'll talk about that later on. But I can then go and say, well, maybe I want this navy blue instead. Okay, a little bit deeper blue. You say, okay. That depends upon the contrast it has with the background colors and so on. But you can set this up to have to highlight it with a color with the words in there. So that's what that does. Now, beyond that, under the components, if I turn those off, I could put a background image. So instead of using one of these, I could go in and put a background image. So if I click on the background image, I might say, let's put the gorilla back there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just leave it at default right now. When I hit submit, save, and preview, I now get the picture of the gorilla in the background. Okay, now this contains its own set of things that can go a little bit awry with this. The See the Glory of the Universe Gallery of Wonders, this is an introduction to the settings to everything, is hard to read because of the dark colors of the gorilla in the background. What I can do is I can go back into there, leaving the gorilla picture, okay? But I can then go and pick one of these. So if I pick we'll say black with the white letters. When I head out here, the black isn't good to show, but the white letters will. So what it's done is the black is hidden by the picture. So the picture, the background picture I've chosen overlays the black background that normally would have been there from if I just left it with a component. But what it's done is it's adopted the white text that goes there. So we can do those kinds of things. And even then, we can move the picture around on the inside. By default, what it's set to in here is whatever it is. I could say, well, it's just covering the page, so it's based upon just putting the picture in there. But I could say full width, and what this does now, it says the width is what governs this. When the width hits the pieces, that's going to define the height for this. So when I click on save and preview now, what this does is now there's a little black bar at the top and bottom because to fill this space with the width of the picture, it's not quite tall enough to fit the way that the box is displayed. So it now shows that black background that I had out there, okay, back in there. Now I can work with that by saying, okay, well, if I put a white background back there, that would then shade those off. Absolutely. So I would go back in and say, let's put the white background back out there. So now I get the white background. I don't have the pieces here, but now this is over top of the white piece that was here at the top. And because it's dark, it's hard to read. So you will have to play with these things. But my suggestion is don't use backgrounds when you're doing this, because what I want you to see are the pictures of the puppies. Right? The gorilla, if you want to show it, should be a 4th picture in here. Okay. Using it as a backdrop is probably not the best thing for here because it's hard to read text that's on it, and it's hard to see what the picture is because it's stuffed in the back. I can move it around using these things here. I can say, let's reposition it. So as it stands, the eye is right here near the top. If I say, let's put a bottom corner down to the bottom corner here, not much is going to change because I defined it by the width, right? So it can't change anywhere. But if I went into there and changed it to say, to go back to the original one that we had, so which is cover, okay. It's now up just a little bit and off to the side. And if I move these things around on the inside with the directional arrows, I can say, well, let's go to the top corner of the opposite side. Okay, now the eye is shifted a little bit over this way, but depending upon the combination of everything, how your picture is, you know, what I've chosen through here, all these things can have a plan. My suggestion is don't use pictures in the background like this. The reason that you would do something like this would be if you wanted to say, have an event that you wanted to highlight on a page, but it was all about an activity dedicated to raising funds for, say, breast cancer. The breast cancer is a very distinct pink color. What I could do is maybe say I want to do the backdrop in pink, but the content colors I can pick from are only these. There's not a pink one. What I can do is I can download an image of just a flat breast cancer pink color as an image and use that as the background image. Doesn't matter where I stick it because it's just a singular color. It just becomes an issue when you have a focal point like a gorilla. If it's just a big thing of a pink, you could drop that in the background to highlight breast cancer awareness or charity or whatever it happens to be. So does that make sense that background images are really just a way for us to be able to say, I don't, none of these colors are what I want as the background, so I just can bring it in. Maybe it's a solid other color. Make sense? Without having to go to the design tab and create a whole design piece just to accommodate a pink color you need on a singular page. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of that. The picture that's there. Go back to the black. There we go. Now, with this, the bottom, the component width, this only applies if your layout is full width. Now ours is set to the left. So this doesn't actually apply on anything except maybe the home page. And all it does is says, we'll take the content and jam it together into a square in the center or a rectangle in the center or full width. But because we're on the left, it's irrelevant. It displays on that side down here as the only place. Okay. So don't worry about that one. Anything within the components, being able to create a background color and highlight back there makes sense to everybody? Or using the background image to put in a color that's not available? All right, next one's animation. Animation is a singular piece. Do I want my picture, my gallery to do stuff? So if I say, yeah, let's animate it, this is great. What animation style do you want? So we have attention seekers, bouncing entrance, and fading entrances. So let's start with a bouncing entrance. Let's say we want them to bounce in from the top. They're going to bounce in downwards. And when I click on that, it says, great. How long after you get to that section on the page do you want that animation to start? Now you can delay it up to 1 second, which is what I'll crank it up to. And then it says, okay, well, when that actually kicks in, how long do you want the animation to last? So it's set by default to 1.2 seconds. Not sure why that becomes the default, but that's what it is. But I can delay it up to 5 seconds. Well, let's expand it up to 2 seconds. Okay, so 1 second after we get to that section on the page, it will engage the animation, which will be a bounce in down from the top, and it will last for 2 seconds. So I'm going to hit submit and save and preview. So now we get there, a second later, boing, it bounces in. Now, some people might say, I don't like the way that it's blank there and then it comes in. People might think that their internet's slow or something like that. That's fine. We can change up the animation. So I can go back into here to animations. I can say, well, the timing's okay, but let's do a rubber band instead. So anything at the top here, these attention seekers, the picture's already there. It's just going to do something when you get there. Okay. So when I get down here, I can hit submit and save and preview. And here's what I get now. It's there, then it rubber bands after a couple of seconds. You're not required to use animations, but at some points, maybe you want to have it do something cool. You can do it. Does that make sense how the animations work? All right, let's turn the animations off. There we go. Now the last piece is advanced. Advanced is giving this a name. Now, just like we saw with the individual dogs and stuff like that, I can name this because if I have more than one gallery on this page, I may not be able to differentiate between them. So what is this particular gallery called? Well, this is our puppy gallery. Go. Now, when I hit submit from this and save, okay, it's going to refresh and it will change the name of this down to puppy gallery. So if I have several galleries along here, I can tell them apart. Now, also down in the advanced part, it says anchor name. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what an anchor is a type of link that is like a hyperlink to go get more information. But when it comes to that, maybe instead of going to a different page, it's all on the same page. Okay, so what this does is if I'm talking about my superheroes and I'm saying, do you want to know more about Batman? For those people who already know about Batman, they say, nah, I already know who that is. And they can just keep reading. But for those who might need more, most hyperlinks, when you click on them, will take you to a new page all about Batman. But what if I have a section at the bottom of the page all about Batman? Well, what an anchor does is it fires you down the same page to a different spot. So what this does right now with the anchor name, it says if I want to have something show up at this gallery, I can give it an anchor name. So I'm going to go in here and call it Puppy Gallery, but I have to do it all as one word. It doesn't like multiple or spaces. So I'm just going to copy that. Okay. So once I hit submit and save, that now has the anchor name of Puppy Gallery. Now, what I'm going to do is if I go down here to my clipboard, I still have that text box that we were working with this morning, right? So I can bring that text box in. And in the text box, I can go in and I'm going to take a look and I'm going to say, this word superheroes in my text box is going to be an anchor for this. Now, even though it has this piece here that says anchor, that's just giving it an anchor name if I'm picking a piece to be the anchor. I'm actually building it over here through the insert edit link. Now, when I click on this, it brings this box up. This box is the same box for every single link you ever build. If it's a button, you'll use this box. If it's a link to go somewhere else, it's this box. If you're building an anchor, it's this box. The difference being here is this anchor query string. This is where I paste my puppy gallery. And I say that when you click on this word, that's the anchor string on the same page that I want you to go to. Okay. So when I put that in there and hit submit, it now becomes a link. So I'm going to hit submit and save and preview. Now, what ends up happening is if I go down here to superheroes, when I click on it, it takes me back up to there because it's now a link to go see it. And of course, if I switch the order, if I move my text box to the top, there we go, and save and preview. When I click on superheroes from up here, it takes me down to it. So that's how you build an anchor string. On the actual gallery, you create under the advanced tab, you create the anchor string name, the anchor name, and you go and you insert it like a regular, like a link on your page, and it becomes that internal piece. Make sense? All right, and move the puppy gallery back to the top. So need it there. All right, so if I go into the gallery here, go back to advanced, custom classes, once again, if you're designing, this is like saying on this particular, not only outside of this page, so you can look at it at different levels. We have global, pack the whole site. We can create sub-global ones and say just this particular node of recreation, we want a different set. And we can even come and do it page by page, and then we can do it spot by spot or a component. I can put a custom class in here that only applies with the font and the color to this particular puppy gallery. Everywhere else follows the other version of the global. Okay, so that's what you would do there, is put that in there. Now at the very bottom we have additional styles. Now these aren't used very often. I'll explain what they do. There is natural spacing between these pieces. I can shave pieces off, but for the most part, when you do this, you don't even notice how much it's such a minute space that goes with it. So even if I say like remove all the spacing and we take a look out there. So that's what it looks like now. And when I go in and remove the spacing, all it does is shave off. So it puts these up against the edges, and same here. Okay. Are you going to use this? Maybe, maybe not. It's up to you guys, but that's what the spacing does. But I can specify only do the top spacing or only do the bottom spacing or remove all the spacing, however you want. Now the next is visibility. Now I can hide this gallery on certain pages or certain ways we display this. So at all screens hide it, which defeats the purpose of having it. extra small, small, medium, large, or extra large screens. Now, what this pertains to is how we see this depending on the device we're viewing it through. So if I go back out here and I save and preview, this is what it's going to look like. I put those edges back in, right? This is what it's going to look like. But at the very bottom of our preview screen, there's this dark purpley blue bar that says we're in preview mode. And over here, it says fit browser. We're fitting my browser window saying this is what it would look like on your computer. But I can click here and say, I wonder what this would look like on a tablet in landscape format. Well, if I click on this, it will say this is how it will be laid out. So it says it's same layout, it just condensed everything. But then I say, well, what about if I was looking at this on a smartphone in portrait style? Well, it would look like this. Now, because of the width of the page, it now stacks the pictures up. Now, I might say, but it makes for a really long scrolly page, and I don't like that. I might say, hide it on extra small and small screens. And just don't show the pictures on those particular versions. Of course, when you want to go back, you simply click on Fit Browser again, and it goes back to the regular width. But this will always allow you to take a look and see how things will look depending on the type of device you're setting it to. Okay, so that's what that does. Okay, and then finally, design. Now, when you're using the Design tab, you can build shadows underneath things. Now, it's a meticulous piece of picking how deep you want the shadow and how far off, and it can be really meticulous. But once you've got it set up, it might look really cool and give kind of a three-dimensional effect as you put a shadow. Now, because we don't put shadows out there by default, you're not going to see anything if I turn the shadows on. So you can turn the shadows that are applied by the Design tab on and off by using that. And the other is sticky. Sticky is where I can stick the pictures and make them stay there. So if I pick the sticky and hit submit and save and preview, what ends up happening in here is as I scroll down, watch what happens when the pictures get to the top. They stick and the rest of the stuff just goes on in the below it until it gets to the bottom. So that is what sticky does. You could pin something sort of to not move until we get to the end of all things. Okay, once again, it makes it tough to see the text that's coming through here, but depends on your content. Okay, so that's what sticky does. And of course, the last piece in there is simply, do I want to hide it the same way? But this would be the entirety of the gallery. Do we want to hide the gallery for now? So as far as all the different settings that we can use on this, does that make sense? I know there's a lot, but by the time you do your second or third page, you become an expert. You know, I don't ever use the animation, or I don't ever, worry about the shadows and stuff. Like, however you want to use these, we give you the flexibility for whatever your creativity and whatever your design decides what would look best for any given page. So does creating a gallery to be able to show pictures and then be able to use the settings make sense to everyone? And like I said, these are the same settings that you'll find in each and every space. It just depends on what you can do. So if I go back to the text box now and look at the settings for there, we don't have the design and layout because it's not about pictures, it's about text, but I can still highlight my text with a colored backdrop and change the font. I can put a background image on there. I can animate, and I can go to advanced, create anchor strings and additional styles and so on. The only thing I can't do is pick how many per row because it's a text box. So does that make sense? How we work with settings for each component that we have, and we have total flexibility as to how we want to roll these out. Make sense? Okay, so the next thing that I want to show you how to do is another common one that was good to go when we were working with iCreate. And that's the accordion. Now you'll notice in here that we don't have accordion within the text box. Say, hey, let's build an accordion. The accordion is all about being able to work as a separate component. All those little bits and pieces that we had within the toolbox in iCreate are now separated into their own pieces here. So what I do is I'm going to create a new page all about accordions. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy. So what I use, I'm going to use what I've got here. I'm going to go to Gallery Mark, and I'm going to right click on it. And in there, I'm going to go to copy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an exact duplicate of my gallery page, but I'm going to make it about accordions. So when I copy it, it says, what do I want to attach it to? So I've copied gallery mark, but what do I want to attach it to? So I'm picking the parent that I want to attach it to, which would be text mark. So when I check text mark and I hit copy, it will make an exact duplicate as another child under text mark, but it's called a gallery one or gallery mark one because it's different than having the original one. Now it's an identical duplicate. Okay. When I go over there with Mark's gallery page, and now I have to edit all those things. Okay. But that's how you copy. It's that simple. So what I can do up here is I can change this now to say this is accordion mark. And this is not Mark's gallery page. This is Mark's accordion page. And of course, I copy this and go to my summary page because it's holding all the same stuff I had. Whoops, I hit the Control C by accident, so go back here. There we go. Go back in and Control B. There we go. And in here, and so display, but accordion page. Okay, and we'll change the picture up. So we'll take that one out and we'll pick the border color this time. There we go. Okay. So now I've got my summary, my accordion, and when I hit save and preview, the only thing that's going to change here is this Mark's accordion page. The components I have are still the same, and it's still sticky. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go back into my puppy gallery, make sure I turn the sticky off because submit. See. There we go. So now we've got my page. It's a duplicate, but I don't have any accordions on it. So once again, I can leave what's already here. I can remove certain things. I might say, well, you know what? I want the text box, but I don't want the gallery on here. Fine. Go to the puppy gallery and delete it. Now, I'm only deleting it from the accordions page. Okay, so if I save it now and I go back to my gallery page, the puppy gallery is there because once I've copied it, it's a completely separate entity. It has no ties other than I brought those things over to save myself some time ahead of the piece there. So I go back into accordions mark, and right now it's just a text box. So it kind of looks like the text mark page, except it's called Mark's accordion page. Okay. So now I'm going to put my accordions beneath the text box that I've got. So I simply on the same page go to add more main content, and this time I'm going to pick the accordion /tab. So when I go in, it too has an intro and an outro. Okay, so once again, I can frame up my accordion with an introduction to what the contents of the accordions are going to be. Now, you've already seen how to do that, so I'm not going to do that right now, but that's how I would set it up. But when it comes down here, it says accordions and tabs. Now, when I hit add accordion or tab item, it's simply a heading and a text. Accordions, as you know, are kind of like a filing cabinet. Okay, whenever you walk up to a filing cabinet, each of the drawers has a label on the outside telling you what the content of that drawer is. And it's only once you pull the drawer open that you can see the content. Well, the same thing's happening here. I am writing something that would be on the outside of the accordion door. So at the heading I might have, it would be test ACC1. And what I'll do is I'll go back to my Wikipedia page and I will copy the first piece here and paste it in. Now, this is a regular text box, meaning that because I copy and paste it, I still need to go up and clear the formatting. Okay. So I can now say that's my first one. And when I hit create, in I go. It already names it test accordion 1 because it just adopts the heading. You only have one in there. If I want more than one drawer of my accordion, I go and add another accordion or tab item. And the heading for this would be test ACC2. And I will go over here, and this time I will take the short little guy right there, and we'll paste him in there. It's in there. I guess it's not really gender specific. There we go. We cleaned it up. I hit create, and I can go and add a third one. This will be test ACC3. And I will go and pick the longest of these. There we go. Copy it, and we'll paste that in there. And there we go, and scrub. Now we got everything done. So what does our accordion look like? Well, if I hit create and save and preview, it looks like this. I still have my original text box, but then I get down and there it is. Now, in this is by default set up to be tab style. So it's kind of, if you think about it, did your mother or your grandmother have one of those recipe boxes that had the index cards in it with the little tabs in it saying, hey, it's all about casseroles and hey, it's all about pastry. That's kind of what we got going on here. We look at the tab and it's test ACC1 and that's what we have. If I move to the second one, it changes what we're looking at. And that way, reduce the amount of scrolliness on a page so we can keep our pages shorter, but also for people who have a reading challenge. When they see vast amounts of information, they can feel a lot of anxiety thinking, I don't know if I can stay on track for this full amount. Well, what I'm doing here is I'm compartmentalizing and saying, oh, you only have to look at what you want in here. So as you work here, you're just only looking at this. And when you've done reading that, you can move on to the next one. That's all you have to read. So a lot of benefits to using accordion. But of course, this is the default for accordion. Just like we have with the gallery, there's tons of different settings we can work with. So if I go into here, into the accordions and tabs, let's go into the accordions and tabs. Inside each one of these, there's a settings wheel, but it's very simple. Do I want a custom class on this, which of course will be just for this particular accordion, not just even for the whole accordion. This would be just for this accordion drawer, or hide it from the website. Well, I'm not doing any of those things. So I can take a step back and I can take a look at the whole accordion. And in there, it says, by default, we're looking at the tabbed version, but we're looking at the basic one. But if I switch it, leaving it as tab, but to the button style, when I go and save and preview now, so instead of having these little kind of recipe tabs, it's like this with a button. So there's test ACC 1 and 2 and 3 as we go along. So just a variation on the theme of what we have there. I can go through there. I can also go to components. It's the colored ones. Well, I can highlight this in that kind of dark blue with the white letters. So when I switch it now, instead of just being a regular piece like this, I now highlight that in blue, okay? And being able to go through there. So you can still put you can put the background, you can put the gorilla back there if you want. It makes it very hard to see because it's got writing over top of it, but you can put the gorilla back there if you want. I highly suggest you don't. With that. So anyways, that's the components that go there. Moving the background image around, the animation. We've already seen what that does, and advanced, right? Give it a name, right? So I might say these are, test accordions. And of course, making anchors and stuff, nothing has changed. It's all the same components that we had for the gallery. Okay, it just doesn't have anything for working with the pictures because it's not designed to. So what I've done is I've gone through it here. There we go. And that's our piece. Now, that's for tabs. What do accordions look like? Well, and you can see it's test accordions out here. If I go in and I say, well, let's pick the accordion style and let's make it the basic style. That doesn't change anything else, just how it's done. So let's take a look at what accordions look like. There we go. Regular accordions like you're used to. Okay. Now, within this, I can say, let's test AC1. There we go. Now, when you build accordions with iCreate, they auto compress. So if you went to the second one, they would auto compress. They no longer do that. And the problem being that we were getting from people was that when they go through here, if they found something in test AC3 that they're like, oh, I can relate that back to something I found in the first one. When they went back to the first one, it would auto compress and okay, well, now I forgot what it was. And now I got to go back to number 3. And when I opened 3, it got rid of 1. And so if we're here now, I can have them both open and be able to reference pieces through there. So that's why we've taken away the auto compress that goes with that. As some people found it confusing to be able to relate content from the inside of one to content the other because they closed off and work like that. But of course, that's the basic style for accordions. I can now go back into my accordions, leave them still accordion style, but go to button style. Okay. What this does is it puts it like that, and they only kind of highlight once you click them open. They stay like a button. Okay. So, any questions about building an accordion? Pretty straightforward. Okay, those are accordions. Now, the next one I want to show you is something called a pod, and pods are incredibly important, except that pods are just boxes that contain other components. The purpose of a pod is to create balance. And so you can put multiple items into the same component, but the purpose of it is that when I display them, it creates a perfect sense of balance for everything that we put out there. So you don't have to worry about it being off alignment and things like that. So pods are all about balance. So what I do is I'm going to create another page. So I'm going to go back to text mark, right click, create a page with a banner, change the name of it again now, and this will be now Podsmark. And my heading for this would be Mark's pod page. I'm going to copy it, and we'll go to our summary and paste in the heading. And you say, get more. Get more text for the summary section, the pods page. There we go. Now go down and pick a picture. Now I'll bring in my little guy Milo because he likes to get some FaceTime and we need more pictures anyway. So I'm going to step out of there and we'll go up to Milo and we'll bring in Milo here. There we go. So we'll upload Milo into here so we have some variety. And there he is. So we'll bring him in and be our mascot for the pods page. Well, when I go back to content and I hit save, nothing is different from what I've done from any other page I created. I changed the name at the top so I have context over here on the side, and I've created a heading, filled up my summary page, and now I'm good to go. Now, here's the thing with pods. Pods are something I can find under main content. Okay, so there are pods. But when I add a pod, pods don't actually do anything on their own. They're simply containers. I do get an intro and I do get an outro that we have here if I want to work with this. So I will. I'm going to turn on the intro for this, align it to the left, and the heading that I will put here is I'm going to say that these are pods of awesomeness. I don't even know if that's a real word, but it is now. Pods of awesomeness, of course, that'll be a heading level 2. Secondary heading for this will be these. All the pods that look like the just silliness. There we go. All right. Now, in here, I can put in text if I want, but I'm actually not going to do this right now. I just wanted to sort of set the stage. So if I hit create and save and preview now, my pods page, I have the Mark's pod page, and I've set up the stage for this. Well, now I'm ready to put stuff in my pod. So when I go back into my pods here and it says pod items, when I click on add content, it gives me a wide range of things to put in. Some of the things you'll recognize, like accordions and tabs. I can put them in here, but some things are unique. I don't have a gallery in here. I don't have a text box. I have a combined text and image box, and that is how we build these. They're using text and images together. Even this, text and an image, it just happens to be an icon at that time. This is how we build them. So I'm going to hit text and image. So it says, great, what picture do you want to put on this one? Well, I can go over here and click on it and say, let's bring our corgi in. And with the heading, I can say this is all about corgis. And I can pick it. Now, you'll notice this is not a semantic heading. This is simply stylistic. Okay, it's just saying when you're throwing pictures into a pod, it doesn't need to be separate because the pod itself is what drives the heading. So in here, I have corgis, and I could pick that I want the heading to be medium sized. I'm not going to put a secondary heading, but I can put text in here, and I'm going to add into here. This is text for a test pod location. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this and paste it a couple times. There we go. Okay, so I put that in there. Now I'm going to add a button. Now the ones that we have out on the front page don't actually have a button. Anything will do, but I can actually put a button on there as a button style by clicking on the button here. Now when I do that, I'm going to hit add, and it says, well, you can add a button color. And when I hit add color, it's one of the predefined colors of buttons that we created on the design tab that are available. Of course, if you're using the design tab to create your own styles for this, you might have a different set of colors for buttons. So I'm going to pick the dark blue button. And this says, well, we can even put an icon on that button. So if I go there, there are literally hundreds of icons to pick from in here. Now you can't add to the list. It is what it is, but I can say, well, let's put the graduation cap in there. It's a medium-sized button, though I can change it to small or large. And then it says add a link. So where do we want the button to go when we click on it? And when I click on it, you'll recognize it's the same thing that popped up when I built the anchor. Like I said, this is the same each and every time. But you also might recall from iCreate, there are actually 3 different types of hyperlinks we can build. We can build an internal hyperlink. So that's traveling to another page within your Aurelia Recreation website. So something that's inside the website already. We can do an external one. So if you're partnered up with, hiking trails or a conservation area or a playground or something like that, they might have their own website. So you're going to create a link that goes off to their website. So that's an external link. Or you may link to a document. So you may have a list of COVID requirements for being in public play areas. So what you could do is you could link to a document, a PDF or Word document or Excel spreadsheet, detailing the information that people might need to know. So you create a button that will take them off to a PDF or something. So for the first one I'm going to build, I'm going to create a link internally. So this particular link is going to take us over to my text mark page. So when you're working with an internal page, you're simply on this page going to go and pick from our hierarchy of what page I want. Now, before I do that, up here, it says link title. This is literally what I want written on the button. So I'm going to leave it as a empty for now, just to show you what if you don't set it, what will happen. So what I do is in my hierarchy here, I'm going to go into recreation. I'm going to pick my text mark page and I'm going to hit submit. Well, now it's got a button that says text mark. By default, it will pick whatever the name of the page at the top, not the heading on the page or anything else. It picked text mark because that's what was written at the top. So that by default is what would be written on the button. If I need to change that, I can go back into edit and it brings me back in and says, you can change what the link title says, right? So I could say, I could change it to say Mark's text page. It does on the piece. Now below that it has a target. Open the link document in a new window or tab. When you work with external hyperlinks or linking to a document, you always check this box. Okay, you go off to a new place to see those. An internal one is the only time when you might leave this unchecked, where it simply replaces what's on the page. And the rationale behind that is that once I've read the text mark page, I simply hit the back button and I come back to my pods mark page. When I go to an external site, something like Wikipedia, every time we go to Wikipedia, there's literally 10,000 hyperlinks on the Wikipedia page. So by the time I've gone through all of them and fully understand it, I have to hit the back button 10,000 times to get back to my page. But if we open it in a separate window or tab, we just close that off and move on. Okay, and go back, and we still have the other page available. Okay, same with the document. You just open it and then close it back off. You're still where you were. So I'm going to leave that off. But it inserted the link location by automatically by picking the text mark page. So I just simply changed the link title and I hit submit. Now that's what it's going to say. So now that I put the button on here and the whole piece, I have the image, I got the heading, I got a little bit of text, and I got a button. When I hit create, it brings that piece here. Well, let's take a look at the settings that I have for the text and image. Okay, there's a lot here. So before we do that, let's see what the default looks like. So I'm simply going to hit submit from there and save and preview. Now, when I go over, it kind of looks like a regular gallery page when I put the first picture in. I get a giant picture of the dog with some writing around it. Okay, so that's the default. But you'll notice it says corgis underneath and then the text that I put. And there's that button saying I can go to Mark's text page. Now, the reality is that the button is kind of just visually telling you, hey, you can click. If you have no idea what's going on, you know that's a button to click on. But the truth is, if I hover over Mark's text page, it turns into a link. And if I go up, it's still the same link. The whole unit becomes something that I can click on. And when I do, it will simply take me over to where I wanted, which is my Mark's text page. And when I'm done, I can hit the back button and it will return me back to the page, the pods page where I was. Does that make sense? Now, some of the cool things I can do with this is the default layout of how it's picture followed by the text with a potential button. But if I go into the pods and I take a look at the settings for my image, my text and image, in here I can say, I don't want the text below the picture. I want the text above the picture. Well, I could switch it to above. And when I hit submit and save and preview, now the details about the corgi, come on. There we go. Now come up before it. Corgis test button picture. Or I could go into here and I say, I could do an overlay. But once again, overlay, when I do it, is going to make things a little bit difficult to see. When I go in and hit submit, what it does is, because I'm using black text, it puts a white wash on the picture so that there's more contrast for the words to be seen. Now, here's kind of the cool thing. I can go back into my pods here and into my text and image settings, and I can pick a different color that goes with this. Okay. So I can go in and I can say, okay, let's, instead of having the black text on there, let's do white text. So let's do black with white text. And when I go back in, it now darkens the picture with that black tint, so there's more contrast for the white text. But there's other things that happen. I can go in here, the settings here, and what if I pick the blue, okay, with the white? It puts a blue filter, so we get so you have to be aware that there's whatever color piece that you have to create the contrast color for text is going to be the tint that it puts on the color of the picture. So we get a bit of a blue tint to that. So just be aware of those things when you work through these things to put them out there. Okay, but we can do that with our settings, the text and image. Once again, I can turn that off and I can say, well, but let's put everything off to the left. Okay, and even if I decide to put the blue back on, if I put it up to the left, yeah, go ahead, Erica.
Sorry, is this applicable for the rotating images on the home screen as well, or does it have to be just a pod in like a general page?
No, it can be used anywhere. And in fact, all those things on their homepage are pods that use exactly this and are using the off to the left.
Okay.
But you could change that off for the homepage and say, I want them over there, I want below. It's up to you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So any combination that works for however you want to put it out there. So when I put it to the left here, it now puts it off like that. So reduce the size of the picture because that's to share that space. But it's now got it separated, and I can do it on the opposite side however I want it. Sorry, Eric, did you just have a different question, or did you just forget to put the hand
Oh,
down?
sorry, just forgot to lower my hand.
No problem. I thought you were looking for a high five. Okay, so in we go, and I'm going to have it just say as below. Okay, but then text alignment, I can move it any way I want. Of course, for accessibility, we should try to keep it to the left, and then it gives me options for image style. So I can go back to the 2:1. And I could hit submit and save and preview. And it changes my picture to be the 2:1 aspect ratio, but focused on the dog's head because that's how I set up my 2:1 aspect ratio to be. Does that make sense? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, maybe I want to square it up a little bit. Okay. In there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my pod and I'm going to go into my text and image settings. And I'm going to pick the 1:1 square. Now I haven't edited that for the 1:1 square. Okay, so I'm going to hit submit and save and preview. And what's going to happen is, because I haven't focused on the dog, it's pretty good, but I might want to zoom in a little bit more. So again, I can go into my pod, I can go into my text and image, and I can go up to here, and I can say, well, let's take a look at the 1:1 square. And I might say, let's zoom in just a little bit and frame up the puppy a little bit. There we go. That's pretty good. And I've only impacted how the 1:1 square is. So when I hit save and close and submit and save and preview, they're now squared up and zoomed in a little bit on the little guy. There we go. Well, here's what I can do now using the clipboard. I have all the settings of how I want this to be. I've got it with the text below it. I've got a button structure. I've got it with a 1:1 square. What I can do now is go into my pods, into my text and image box, and simply add it to my clipboard. And now when I go to the next piece here, I can say, let's add that same text and image in. Now you notice on my clipboard, that text box is gone. It's not gone. Text boxes cannot be used inside pods. Therefore, it only will only show on the clipboard things that are applicable to be used within a pod. So I can go to my last one and I can do it. So now I got 3 pictures. Now, when I hit submit and save and preview, they're all the same picture. It's all this corgi, right? Because I copied it. So what do I do without having to go redo all the settings again? I just go to my pods and tweak what I need. So in my second text and image. And actually, for the first one, if I go in here and I go to advanced, I can give it a name. Say this is for corgis. And so when I go to my second one, when I head to the inside, I can get rid of the corgi and I can pick the golden lab. But the golden lab, I have not sized for the 1-to-1 square. So I would hit the pencil. I would go to my 1-to-1 square and say, what if we zoom a little bit and move the head down? There we go. Focusing on that. Save and close. Now the heading can't be corgis because it's not a corgi, it's golden labs. And in here, I might say, let's make this a longer one. So if I copy it and I just paste, get a bunch of stuff in there. Okay. Now I don't want it to go to the same piece. This is going to the same link. I want it to be going somewhere different about Golden Labs. So I might change the color. So I could just, the button that's already there, I can remove and I can add color and pick a different color. I could change the icon to be, I don't know, football. And then the details. I don't want to go to Mark's text page anymore, so I can hit edit or remove. Now, editing, I have to go manually change all the fields. But if I hit remove, it goes back to just being add a link, in which case when I hit add a link, it's fresh. Now I'm going to do an external link. I'm going to have it go to our superheroes page. Okay, so I'm going to copy this because it's an external page. I copy it. In here, I'm going to paste the URL directly into the URL. So that's where that link is going to go. But I have to put a link title. And so I can put in here, superheroes, because that's what the destination is. Okay. Now I'm going to open this in a new window or tab. I don't need to pick another page because it's not an internal one. I copy and paste it because it's an external. And so when I hit submit, the button's going to say superheroes and it's going to take you off to a new page. Make sense so far? So I'm going to hit submit. Okay. Now I'm going to finish in there. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to go to advanced and change this to be lab. Submit. And then I'm going to go to the final one. Inside I go, not going to be about the corgi this time. Okay. I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick the border collie. So in I go, the name changes to border collies. And I can go in and change the aspect ratio for the 1-to-1 square. We'll zoom this one in a bit too. There we go. And save and close. And I'll leave it back to the original. Now, I'm going to show you how to link to a document. So in this one, not going to be the blue color. We'll go with the yellow color this time. Get rid of the icon and we'll switch it to be the book. And in here, I'm going to hit remove and go back to the link, go back in. Now, I'm not going to another page on the inside with the document on it. The document's going to be standalone. So I can't find that document in the hierarchy. And I'm not going outside of the website to it. So I'm not going to copy and paste a website URL. I'm actually using this one down here that says select media. So when I click select media, it's going to reach into my media folders. Now, typically I would have a separate documents folder. So I could always go back to media here and go into the documents folder and pick a document from in here, but to keep it so I can clean this up later on, I'm going to go back into my Mark training. And in here, I'm going to hit upload and I'm going to reach out and I've got a whole thing on PDFs here. So let's grab a PDF and bring it in. There it is, and we'll hit select, and there it goes. Now, it brings a link in for me, and I'm going to open this in a new tab, but I don't want to just say Demo PDF 2. I'm going to say View Our, just like we used to have with iCreate. View Our Demo PDF 2. And when I hit Submit, and then, of course, in here, I'm going to hit Submit and go into the settings here and go to Advanced and change this to be about Border Collies. Okay. Now, when I hit submit and then I go back into my pods, it will have updated each of the names so I can tell the difference. But because I had preset the settings for the first one, all I did was change the picture and the title on it and the destination of the links. So now that I've got all these, I can hit submit and I can save and preview. And what this will do is it will stack them all. There's my corgi now with our Mark's text page. I've got my Golden Lab with the extra content going to superheroes. And I've got the Border Collie going with its shorter piece again, going to the view of the demo PDF 2. Okay, if I click on this, it'll take me over and open up the actual document so that people can read it within there. Or if I had clicked on the one that is up here going to another piece, it would take us over in a separate tab to the superheroes page. Okay. Now, that's straight up how they go. But once again, it's not hard to balance. I could have built this in a gallery maybe or something like that. What's this all about balance? What it does is I haven't done any of the settings for the pod in its entirety. I've only worked with the settings for each picture. So what I'm going to do is go into here and go to the pod setting. And inside here, it says how many per row do you want? And so I could say, let's put 3 per row. And when I hit submit and save a preview, still holding on to the 1x1 square, or because I set that up, but there we go. And now we can see that each one is balanced for space. Okay. Now you say, yeah, but it's off here. Well, yeah, because there's more text here. What I mean by balance is if I take this and I put it and I go 2 per row, this one's going to move below. Now, if it wasn't balanced, it's going to start up here and kind of be off of how it's displayed. But because it's in a pod, when I go to the pods and I make 2 per row, it's all about balance. And so it won't start the next row until the bottom of where the longest piece above it is. And so now I've got my border collies moved down here. And yeah, there's a bit of a gap here, but if I had another one here, it would start right here underneath this one. So it's all about balance. Does that make sense? That pods are about balance. And of course, within my pod settings here, item spacing, random order carousel, we know about those things. They're all the same things that we have for gallery. And the truth is that the pods inside here are really just a gallery that uses balance. Components, changing the colors, background images, animating, advanced, all those things are the same. So if I went and I put a blue background in here, it's going to highlight it like this. That's made my Mark's text page button a little bit difficult to see, so I might want to think about the color choices that we have for these things. But once again, that's how you build balance within these. Do pods and how we use them, does that make sense to everyone? That's all about taking the same kind of thing and setting it up so it looks like we have on the home page here. Okay. The only thing we did with the home page here is we didn't bother to put a button structure in there. We just put a link. And in fact, if I decided that in my pods here that on the border collie, I don't really want a button for this one. So what I can do is I can remove the entire button from here by clicking on the trash can. So that gets rid of everything and resets it. Okay. So what I can do is I might go into here and say, learn more. Now, what I can do when I highlight this and go to the links here that we have, same box. Now, because this is going out to a document, I would select media, go pick my PDF for this one and go back in, open a new tab, switch this back to view hour. There we go. Now, this link title, watch what happens here. Okay. When I hit submit and I go in, there's your learn more. Okay, so it didn't matter what I wrote in that link title. It's only going to put whatever I had as the link when I started the link. But this is just a regular link now instead of a button structure that I click on. And it takes us over to the document again. Any questions about pods? We're not done with pods, but I guess pods with the image/text box. Everybody good with that? Okay, and again, we can make it a carousel. We can do all those things. And if we go back to our home page here, when we take a look at the call to actions that we have here, that content banner that we have on the home page, this thing here, that's just going out here and saying, putting a picture here, and we're going to build a carousel out of it. So all we've got there, and it's using the overlay. So if I go into the content banner here, you can see it's a component is a banner. It's just 3 banners stuck in there. So this one functions a little bit differently because it's using the banner style in order to create that full width piece. But I can do the same thing with call to actions too within there. I could go into here and I could add, whatever I wanted to here, but I can actually turn this. Oh, sorry, we'll do carousel. Yeah, I can build into a carousel. So instead of having them all across the page like this, well, I can have maybe 2 at a time, and then it just kind of shuffles them in. However, your imagination takes you in here is possible. Okay. So that's what purpose of pods are. Now, before I have more things, to show you within pods. But are there any questions about the purpose of a pod and the ability to end up making the pods balance out? And that's how we create those kind of layers of call to actions or feature boxes. Everybody good with that? Okay, so I'm going to show you one more pod component. Then we'll take a break and then we'll come back and finish things off. Now, the next pod component I'm going to show you is something called related content. And throughout all of this, I've been building summary pages. Related content is one of those pages that it allows us to be able to use the summary pages to make a display. Now, what this does is it's very much the way that you could use the layout builder in iCreate and stack on your row a bunch of call to actions. It's just that the way the call to actions displayed in iCreate was singular. It only displayed in one fashion. Here we have all the settings to customize how we want those to look. So what we can do is we can use that summary page in the kind of the same way. And so what I can do is create basically a brochure of things all on the same page. Now, what I mean by that is if you've ever walked into a hotel, there's always that rack of brochures when you first come in saying, hey, here's all the cool things to do while you're here. And you can pick and choose what you want. We can build that kind of a structure on a page. So what we can do with that is we can work with this to say, how do we want to display this? And it uses the summaries. We don't want to tell everybody all the info. We just want to get your attention and have you go off. These are excellent for things like kids' summer recreational programs. You may have a master page saying kids' summer recreational programs, but you can make it like related content and you can show all of the summer programs on that page. Now, each one of those programs has an individual page unto itself, and you simply filled in the summary pieces of each of those pages, and in one shot, you can bring them all together onto a page that hosts all of them. So how do I do that? Well, first thing I do is I'm going to go to text mark, and I'm going to right click and create a new page with a banner, and I'm going to change it up here, and I'm going to say that this is related content mark. And I'm going to say down here in the heading, this is Mark's related content page. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go to my summary even for this one and put it in here and say more text. This time will be related content page. There we go. And we can go down here and we'll grab another picture of Milo. We'll get him in a bed there. All right. And we'll go back to our content. Now, again, I'm going to hit save. I've done nothing different than I've done for any other page. Okay. Give it a name at the top so it has context here. I put a different heading on it and I filled in the summary page. Well, when I go to main content, I don't have related content here. Related content only work inside pods. So I have to add the pod first. I make the container that I'm going to put that in. So I hit pods. Now, of course, I could put an intro to give context to what I'm going to work with here, but we're aware of that. When I go to the pod items, as I said, there's a unique grouping here that some things you're familiar with from main content, some aren't. But within this, we have related content. So when I add that, it's incredibly simple. And it says, what do you want me to add in here? So when I click on add, it gives me the hierarchy. And it says, what pages do you want to pick? You can pick pages from absolutely anywhere within your site. It doesn't have to be in here. I can pick any pages that I want to display on this page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the text mark page of the gallery, the accordions, pods, and related content, a self-reference in here. Okay, so I picked those 5 pages. I'm going to hit submit. So it's going to add them all in. Now, the only one that actually has a valid link is the text mark because it's the only one that's published. The other ones are grayed out because I haven't published them. Okay, but I will. So now I've got that. So what I'm going to hit create, and I'm going to hit save. Okay, so once I've saved it, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to publish these so that they'll be visible. So here's where I can show you how the with Descendants works. I go to text mark as the parent, and I go to my save and publish, expand it, publish with Descendants. Now, I have to slide this on. By default, it will only publish things that have previously been published. So it's just an updater. With this, When I slide this, it includes unpublished content items. So anything that's never been published before. And when I click on publish with the sentence, it then goes through and in one shot publishes all of those. And now they're good to go. So it's going to save me some time. Well, now if I go back to my related content mark page and I save and preview it, it looks like this. There's my first piece. This is my text mark page. This is the summary text of the page with the picture I chose. Second one is Mark's gallery page. Here's more. Each one of the summaries with its distinct picture shows up here. Okay. So we have all these different pages, but I haven't even touched the settings yet. This is just the default. What I can do is I take a look and say, well, I got 5 pages. So what I can do is I can do 3 per row, 3 on the top, 2 on the bottom. So I go into my pods here and I can pick 3 per row, submit, save and preview. And now we set it up like that. And here's where now you would have at the top here saying this is children's summer recreation programs. We've got archery camp and swim camp and math camp and space camp and culinary camp or whatever it is. And you have this one page where people show up and go, wow, I didn't even know we had an archery camp. Let me check that out. And of course, you click on any one of these and it will take you over to that unique page that we've created all about archery camp.
Lynn Murray again, trying to get a hold of Allie. And
Allie, you're unmuted. Thank you. So anyways, we can now pull it together like that. Okay, where we now over on the gallery page and say, I didn't even know we had this. And of course, on this page, it would say, you give all the details about it, and then where I could go and click and be able to go and register for that or contact somebody for more information. And of course, within my pods here, I can go in and I can set it up with any combination of things, just like I did before. Okay, I can put animations on them and so on. Okay. Does that make sense to everyone? How this particular page with related content works? But we can build this up any way we want. And of course, because it's pods, it's going to create that balance. So regardless of how much extra text we have, it won't start the whole next row until it's down below the longest piece. Everybody good with that? Okay, so I'm going to stop the recorder there. And we'll take a break.